Hi, my name is Robert Green Sands, and I'm the CEO of Pamlico Rose, and welcome to episode 2 of Renovating Haven.
And I'm Caitlin O'Donnell, the AmeriCorps Vista currently supporting Pamlico Rose. In the first episode, Dr. Rob, briefly introduced the Rose Haven Center of Healing, our mission, and explored the Haven House as we began renovating and restoration efforts. When complete, the Haven House will help support our mission of advancing wellness and resilience building through programs for women veterans in the process of reintegration.
We also touched briefly on some of the historical aspects of the house, all the while claiming that we were not Chip and Joanne from the Home and Garden TV network. We are also a nonprofit that sees value in restoring historic properties to help the community grow. For episode 2, we're going to touch a little bit more on what we've done on our renovating process since episode 1, and we're going to get a little more familiar with the population that will be using the Haven House.
Let's start with our progress. Rob's wife Allison's uncle from Arkansas, who happens to be a house painter, was going stir crazy in his tiny home waiting for work to start up again after being delayed by the virus. Allison, also a Pamlico Rose board member, suggested that he come over and help paint. Uncle Butch threw some ladders, scrapers, a couple of paintbrushes, his enthusiasm for spending time with his family, and his enthusiasm for our mission in his van and was here a week later. 15 straight days of painting later, Rob and Butch, with the help of Allison on the weekends, finished the entire house. Let's hear a bit about Butch's decision to drive from Arkansas all the way to Little Washington, North Carolina, in order to help us paint the house. For the full story on Butch, check out our podcast series, The Rose Haven Chronicles.
I knew that you had this project for painting the house, and even though this is usually my busy time of year, painting, because of the COVID thing, we've not been as busy. And I knew you had this house that really needed some work, and it had a lot of high work on it. And I thought, gee, what a great opportunity to get away from house confinement, which most people are on one way or another. And I thought, gee, I could safely probably drive down there, and you guys were quarantining yourselves, and I had been quarantining myself, so we didn't have too much danger of COVID transmission. And I thought, gee, I could actually do some work and do some physical work, because in the winter we did some, but nothing like all the climbing we had to do here.
So painting an older house involves more than just scraping and slopping on paint. In the process of tearing down so we could build up, we replaced 85% of the wood siding. We also had to replace or rebuild windowsills and frames, and for many of the windows, exterior trim. That is in addition to having to scrape hard or burn off the old paint for the new coat. Most nonprofits live on the edge, dancing that tightrope between being able to function for another day, serving those at-risk populations, or going under. COVID-19 has put a stranglehold on the two most important ways nonprofits get their resources: donation and volunteer time. Both have been heavily reduced by the virus, social distancing, and the impact on folks' financial security.
Yet the virus hasn't reduced the number of those who are at risk. It has acted to increase the number of people needing help, while many nonprofits struggle to stay afloat to help the growing number. That is why it is those people like Uncle Butch willing to give their time and effort to nonprofits like ours that is so very critical in the time of the virus.
Connected with the virus is also one of the populations that we serve, women veterans. For many women veterans, reintegration may be a struggle due to the effects of trauma they experienced during their service, leading to post-traumatic stress. Even though women do not go into combat, many of them serve in support roles that are just as important, such as helicopter pilots, medics, and logistics, and other critical roles. But more pervasive to women veterans is the percentage that are survivors of military sexual trauma. Allison, who works in sexual assault prevention and response, can shed light on this.
Although women in uniform have long served with courage and bravery in combat environments, the last 10 to 15 years in Afghanistan and Iraq have exposed them to violence in combat like never before. As a result, they're twice as likely to suffer PTSD than their male counterparts. They're also twice as likely to have psychological distress, and unfortunately 1 in 5 report experiencing military sexual trauma, which includes either sexual harassment or sexual assault, or both. They're also the highest rising segment of the homeless population. Our female veterans face unique challenges upon re-entry as well, because most people don't realize they are veterans and think that they're spouses of one. They're more likely to be younger than their male counterparts when they get out. They're more likely to get divorced, be single parents, and have other challenges that are unique to women. One of the most effective ways of dealing with these unique challenges is social connectedness. Rosehaven Center of Healing and its programs connect female veterans to each other to provide that community of support that they wouldn't otherwise have.
We talked to 2 women veterans who have gone through our retreat program and asked them about some of the issues that they and other women veterans contend with after leaving the military. Let's hear from Gabriela first.
Okay, my name is Gabriela Gonzalez. 19 years ago when I got out, there was nothing that could assist me in what I dealt with. So nobody cared, it seemed like. When I got out, I got a job and moved on. So some of the behaviors that I've come across that they may not think is connected to their military service is substance abuse, mental health, depression, being totally introverted, and just by talking to them and getting the bits and pieces to open up about their experiences. This is where Pamela Rose comes in, or Rosehaven, to assist with the reintegration and the mental health to become healthy again. Because if you've been out 10 years, 12 years, 1 year, 2 years, you're not necessarily connected. Has something to do with your military experience, especially if you suffered from military sexual trauma or any other trauma that happened during that time, because we females suck it up and drive on. That's usually the military mentality, and you don't realize that's what you've been doing, and one day it just explodes and it comes out, and that translates into that behavior that you're having now. Female veterans have a hard time acknowledging that they are actually veterans. There are different barriers that they face that they're hesitant to acknowledge and to come out and speak about. It takes several sessions to establish a rapport and for them to be comfortable to explain what the barriers are. Some of it is single female with child. Some of it is experiences that they had in the military that they don't want to talk about. For example, military sexual trauma. Some others are domestic violence. Some others are the reintegration to coming and have a smooth transition when they get out. I know I had a challenge when I got out because you are surrounded by camaraderie. You are surrounded by female veterans that are in the same boat as you are, and then once you are out, you're all by yourself.
Dawn can provide insight as well.
Hello, my name is Dawn Fletcher. I'm a United States veteran. I served on a naval vessel from 1988 to 1992 and finished a 2-year reservist commitment. Living on a ship for 3 years was a different experience than some female veterans in other branches. I had a technical rating. I was an electronics tech, so it was pretty male dominant. I didn't have any female supervisors. Looking back, I see how that might have affected my choices when it was time to separate. I had planned on making it a 20-year career. And I actually had a meritorious promotion board at the time of my separation. And then one day in the middle of the Pacific, on return from a deployment, I received a Red Cross message that my father had had a stroke. And I'm the oldest in my family, and for the same reason that I joined the service, or the Navy, was a need to serve. I felt like I needed to go back home. It was my place, and that was how I was raised, and I was needed somewhere else at the time. I didn't receive any counseling that I recall, or any sit-downs with my chain of command to give me an option to return, or maybe to take a 30-day leave. In hindsight, I wouldn't have changed that decision. I feel that women, during their active and their veteran service time, they're busy. When they get out, they're busy for whatever family commitment. A good amount of them are single mothers. They may have had a child with another service member while they were in. So they're busy raising a family. If they're traveling with that service member, then everything else goes on the back burner. If they're single, they're busy trying to raise this child, pay their rent, because all that room and board is gone. That carpet's been pulled out from underneath them, and they've got to take care of themselves now. They may have to take care of someone else. I would say that when women get out, they have other commitments, and they're just maybe overwhelmed, and they don't have that support, that mentorship to show them, hey, you can. I do know a person, a very independent, creative person who has sought help for MST, and it was during their time in the service. And I don't know if it was the culture, how much exposure this person had with her male counterparts. I've never pressed them for the situation. I just acknowledge it and recognize it as part of her. I think that's how she's dealt with it. And then as a female gets older and matures and gets out, they look back that they didn't address that at that time. It was a situation. It was not a proper situation. And if there was any fallout in their chain of command, or if they had to go back to work the next day with this person, they couldn't escape it. It's not like they can go to another dorm or go home. They have to continue to work with these people after they've been assaulted. That is what's bringing the female veteran community together, is saying this out loud, acknowledging it, having someone in their healthcare system, resources in front of them, and telling them it's okay, help them get through that and helping them build on it, and maybe that'll trickle down to the active duty side and make more accountability and by putting a name on it and acknowledging it and not hiding it and not forcing the women to hide it.
Hi again, thank you so much for stopping by.
And listening to our stories.
Please stay tuned for episode 3 when it comes out of Renovating Haven. Until then, be safe. We filmed this episode before the disappearance of Vanessa Guillen, the recovery of her body, and subsequent criminal investigation into her murder. Our interviews with Gabriella and Dawn occurred late in 2019. Thus, we also filmed prior to the compelling and powerful outpouring of personal stories of women veterans surviving sexual harassment and assault. Many commentators have called this collection of narratives at this time in our society an inflection point in the military's Me Too movement, while many women veterans have called this their Black Lives Matter moment. Not only is it an empowering moment for survivors, it has become a galvanizing lightning rod of advocacy by non-military women and others. As Maya Angelou said, I learned a long time ago, the wisest thing I can do is be on my side, be an advocate for myself and others like me.